11 hours and 48 minutes, 4 consecutive days, and 128 gigabytes of recording footage. Geometry Dash is a 2013 platformer game, and with its recent update 2.2, it unleashed the true potential of the community by having some of the most complex triggers, which are basically preset coding functions. And since I just so happen to be good at these triggers, I decided to remake the first zone of Sonic 3, Angel Island, in Geometry Dash. Without further ado, let's begin. Before I started with adding all the moves that Classic Sonic has now, I wanted to work on the background, making the right background, choosing the right color, and having the ground follow suit. I did struggle a bit, I even tried to add a gradient here, but in the end I landed on a dark green forest background, meant to resemble the trees from Angel Island. Moving on, as you can see, you can jump already as the game mode we're playing as, which is the robot, but this doesn't really look like Sonic's jump. For that, we're going to have to use the ball game mode, a different one, to make the illusion that Sonic is turning into a ball inside Geometry Dash. I did this by having the portal for both the robot and the ball always follow the player, but keep the ball portal off on default, and then when the robot boost ends when you jump in the air, the game instantly turns off the robot portal and turns on the ball portal, and then when hitting the ground, the game switches the robot game mode on and the ball game mode off. This loop makes it so that we'll always spin when in the air, so as long as we move forward and backward as the ball. Next up, we have our spin dash that we'll need to do. The thing about Geometry Dash is that the editor is very limited, so in order to make a lot of things, we're either going to have to change some things about it, or make the illusion of it happening. In my case, in any classic Sonic game, when the player starts to spin dash, Sonic starts spinning in place until you release the button, and it releases sending the player forward. What I instead did was I trapped the player inside this box, but turned it off on default. When the spin dash button was pressed, it would turn on the box that traps the player in place, as well as making a force block. These blocks apply force on the character, and I set the modifier to 500. This made it that the force block makes the player spin very fast, but without leaving the confines of the blocks. When the button is repressed, the block goes away, and the force block set to 500 also leaves. Instead, a force block with a modifier of 10 slowly rotates towards the ground, which gives the illusion of your momentum slowing down over time. To prevent the spin dash from breaking, I made it so that you cannot use the controls until it finishes, removing any variety. Afterwards, I tried to test out the spin dash by putting it into a little area with all types of slopes, but not only did the spin dash not grip onto the ground, it also phased through the slope and broke the spin dash. The reason why the spin dash breaks is because since the drag of blocks is always following you even when it's off, any sudden movements like teleporting or phasing through objects actually desync the blocks, and since the spin dash start has a force block that pushes at 500, this happens. I tried decreasing the amount of force for both pre-spin dash and during spin dash, but even though I knew the problem, there wasn't really a viable solution. So for that reason, there aren't any slopes in the level we're gonna make, but we still have a lot to do. So we move on and start working on the monitor. I first made up the monitor itself, and then I picked out some pixel pickup items as the icon that would show what power-up you could acquire. But here's where we again ran into a problem. It's probably about time I acknowledge the numbers and circles you can see everywhere. I'll try to explain this as concisely as possible, and then I'll explain why a new problem arises. So these circles are the triggers I mentioned earlier, and the numbers are what group they are assigned to. For example, if I set a group of blocks to group 1, and make an alpha trigger that sets the opacity to 0, all objects in that level with the group 1 will become invisible. Say I add a portal, and also add it to group 1, it will still turn invisible. So how does this correlate with my problem? Well, in the real Sonic the Hedgehog 3, item boxes can only be used once, so in our project we don't want them to exist after we hit them. So we make it so that when hit along with the effect, we delete the boxes and the collision box that activates a power-up. The thing is, if we copy and paste the power-up, once we hit one of them, everyone that shares that group will also be deleted, making it so that we can only have one box per power-up, but we need more than one, so I made a system. Instead of the entire group disappearing once touching the item box, I made it so that there's a toggle trigger activated by touch inside every single individual item box. That way, we can remove the toggle trigger from the item functionality and instead have it to be separate. With this, all I have to do when I want a new item box of the same power-up is copy it, give everything a new group, and now we have multiple item boxes. I started off simple with the speed shoes monitor, which was pretty simple. I made 2 speed portals, one at the regular speed and one at 3 times the speed that follows you all the time, similar to the robot and ball portal. I turned off the fast one by default, made it so that the music sped up, and that after 12 seconds, the music would instantly turn back to normal and the normal speed would flip on while the fast one turns off again. Next up, I worked up on the lightning shield. This shield allows Sonic to double jump while in the air and makes it so that rings attracts the player. So I got to work. I added a yellow orb that follows the player all the time, turned it off by default again, and made it so that whenever the ball portal was summoned, so did the yellow orb that would allow a double jump. At the same time, I made sure not to put them in the same group, because I wanted to control them independently. I made it so that when you use the orb, it instantly disappears, and we were almost done with the lightning. Aside from diversity, the main thing I remember for the shields from Sonic 3 are the sounds that they make when you get them and when you use them. So I looked up for some SFX in the library. Here's the before and after. After finishing on the lightning shield, I set my sights on the flame shield. The thing is, the 3 elemental shields kind of have the same premise. For the lightning shield, the equivalent of that is a yellow orb to bounce you up, and for the fire shield, the equivalent of it is a dash orb, which propels you forward. So I basically copied over my work from the lightning shield, added some SFX, and called it a day.